So before we get into the breakdown, one thing to note, Bruce Shu Shu Carrington is an orthodox fighter. Rene Palacios Galvan is southpaw, so there is always the possibility of a head clash that can change the direction of this fight. This fight is also a title defense for Shu Shu's WBC World Featherweight belt. We'll start off with Shu Shu since he is the A side. So to start off, Shu Shu doesn't exactly fight in one style. He's actually very intelligent. He has a mix of styles that he'll incorporate throughout the entire fight, which he'll use to adjust to his opponents. But in the beginning of the fight, he does usually come out using his jab, which is quick, sharp, also long due to his 72-inch reach, which is above average for someone his height of 5 feet 8 inches tall. But he'll use that jab to dictate the pace of the fight early, establish distance, combine it with some feints to see how his opponents react so that he can learn their timing. But as the fight progresses, you can start to see the adjustments he makes in real time. Speaking of timing, timing is definitely one of the most important factors of Shu Shu's success in the ring, because once he learns his opponent's timing, he can then use his hand speed to return fire almost immediately after they throw and catch them before they have the chance to react or prepare for the counter. Also, with this speed, he likes to punch with his opponents in between their shots to catch them by surprise. And being that he doesn't really have only one style of fighting, and there doesn't seem to be a pattern with the way that he fights in relation to his opponent's style, there's really no way to anticipate his approach to a fight. Sometimes Shu Shu will meet his opponent in the middle of the ring, try to keep the fight there. Other times he'll mainly fight off the back foot, make use of the whole ring, utilizing lateral movement, even purposely backing himself into the ropes in a high guard stance to bait his opponents to open up and throw so that he can counter them, because again, he does have those quick hands. But then there's also times where he'll just straight walk his opponent down, keep them under pressure, and even make it an ugly physical fight on the inside, which is also where he tends to land some of his best shots, particularly uppercuts. Now, there are some holes in Shu Shu's defense that can be and have been exploited. Most evident, Shu Shu sometimes does get caught, quote unquote, admiring his work. For anyone that doesn't know what that means, basically after he throws a punch, Shu Shu will kind of just stay there for a split second, won't move his head to get out of the way to avoid being countered, which if he shows a pattern of this, it can be timed. Another thing that stands out to me, going back to the example of Shu Shu purposely switching to the high guard stance, the high guard does leave the body exposed around the elbows, so more experienced fighters can definitely see this as an opportunity to attack the body with multiple shots. And being that Shu Shu will sometimes use this to bait his opponent to open up and throw so that he can punch in between their shots, if they switch fast enough from targeting the body up to the head, basically during mid-swing, they can actually catch Shu Shu when he opens up to throw his counter. Now, that could be considered more circumstantial. However, I did notice Suleiman Sagawa did land his best punch against Shu Shu in their very close fight, which was a left hook in this exact scenario. Also, another reason I pointed this out is because Galvan is a dangerous body puncher and does have the speed to catch Shu Shu in the same fashion that Sagawa did. Which now brings me to Shu Shu's opponent for this fight, Rene Palacios Galvan. 5 feet 7 inches tall, reach 67 inches, which is average for his height. Now, even though Galvan is undefeated with 19 wins and 10 KOs, the majority of his previous opponents were basically club-level fighters from Mexico, so I wouldn't put too much stock into his record. However, his most recent win in January of this year against the same opponent that I previously mentioned, Suleiman Sagawa, who did give Shu Shu a tough fight but lost by majority decision, definitely seems to be the highlight of Galvan's career at this point. It was a very physical but disciplined fight on both sides. Now, one thing I would like to note about this fight, compared to Galvan's other fights, Galvan, although he did still show discipline in this fight, it was almost as if he wanted to show Sagawa that as the younger, hungrier prospect, he was tougher, making it a more uglier fight on the inside than usual, even willing to use his shoulder and elbow to push Sagawa back. Whereas in his other fights, Galvan was more defensively responsible, showed a better understanding of distance, changing levels, lateral movement, stepping in the pocket, getting his shots off and stepping out to avoid being countered. Also, better control of pacing the fights, knowing when to put his foot on the gas instead of just nonstop pressure. So with that said, there isn't too much tape on Galvan, but from what I did see, it does seem that he is similar to Shu Shu in the sense that Galvan doesn't have just one style, so he basically adapts to his opponent. But one thing I noticed in the Sagawa fight that could actually be a crucial mistake on Galvan's part, Galvan is one of these fighters that doesn't always bring his guard up. so he'll keep his hands low and try to rely more on head movement to avoid and dodge counters. But with Shu Shu having that longer reach, and again, not only being fast, but most likely faster than any of Galvan's previous opponents, if Galvan decides to fight in this manner, and Shu Shu notices a pattern of Galvan moving with his hands low, Shu Shu is quick enough to punch where Galvan's head is moving too, so he could possibly bait him and catch him wide open with something that can change the outcome of the fight. Now, by doing this breakdown, it actually makes this matchup even more interesting to me, because it's almost impossible to even anticipate how this fight is going to look. Will Shu Shu be on the front foot, applying pressure? Will Galvan be on the front foot, trying to bully Shu Shu, forcing him to fight off the back foot? Will they both try to keep the fight in the center of the ring and basically brawl it out? I mean, honestly, even though Galvan did go 10 rounds with Sagawa, who is a very durable opponent, the truth is, Sagawa's punches don't exactly have the same pop that Shu Shu's punches do. Plus, this is Galvan's first 12-round fight, so that's another factor to consider. And even with Galvan being tested in that Sagawa fight, one thing to keep in mind is Shu Shu's last fight, which was against Carlos Castro. Before that fight, Castro had never been knocked out, at least off his feet. Brandon Figueroa did stop him previously, but Shu Shu got the KO in the 9th round. And Castro has definitely fought the higher level, more durable opponents than Galvan. So we could be looking at a similar situation. Because while I do believe it's going to be competitive, especially in the early, maybe even mid rounds while they try to figure each other out and make adjustments, eventually I do see Shu Shu taking control of the fight, showing the difference in levels, and overall just being too much for Galvan and most likely getting the late stoppage or KO, especially if Galvan tries to turn it into a brawl. And for the bettors, again, I do believe we see a late stoppage or KO for Shu Shu, but there is always the possibility of this fight going the distance. Just because it is boxing, anything can happen. So definitely Shu Shu on the money line is the safest bet to me, but obviously there's no value there. So if you do believe Galvan will try to play it safe, or maybe he is just that durable, you might want to consider taking the over, or if you want to get a little risky, take the distance at plus money. And if this video has helped you or entertained you in any way, please leave a like, maybe comment if you have any input, or even consider subscribing. I am working on incorporating video clips into these breakdowns, but this is only my second video, so I'm still kind of feeling things out here. But I do appreciate any support. With that said, Inside Out Boxing, always respect the unknown, and I'm out.